All right, everyone, welcome. We're going to do a short practice today. And we're going to be working on the movement that's called external rotation. So that's when you take your thigh bone and you rotate it out in the hip. So this movement is important for a number of standing poses that are very common, things like Warrior Two, Virabhadrasana 2 pose, or triangle pose, Trikonasana, as well as a number of other poses in yoga, including sitting cross-legged as I am doing right now. So one of the things that can happen if we are not great at this movement, or if we've learned to do this movement in a way that involves other parts of our bodies, is that sometimes when this movement is not happening well, that impacts how we feel in the knees, in the feet, in the hips, in the low back, all kinds of ways. So it can be really helpful to learn to do this movement and to be really coordinated about it so that you're really moving what you want to be moving, which is the leg, the thigh bone, and not moving a whole lot of extra stuff, such as the pelvis or the other leg or the low back or the shoulders or whatever else, the foot, whatever else might be moving along with the leg. So to do this, we're going to do a couple different poses lying down, and then we're going to come up and see what this looks like in a standing posture. So wherever you are comfortable doing this, you're going to lie down. If you can be on a firm surface, it's going to work a little bit better. But if where you can be is on a better couch, you still might get some benefit from this. I'm a big fan of doing what you can do. So we're going to come to lie down. We're going to start with the knees bent and the feet on the floor. And the first thing we're going to think about is where you put those feet. So if you walk them too far away from you, you'll start to notice the low back arching and you're just not feeling super supported, and there's a lot of strain to try to lift a foot up off the floor. If you bring them super close to your sitting bones, you're going to notice the low back flattening. Now, sometimes we like that, but it's a particular strategy, right? You're also going to notice a feeling of constriction around the joints of the spine, the hips, the knees, stuff like that. So a happy medium here if you can, finding a distance where you still feel supported by the feet. You have a little space between your low back and the floor, but not a huge space. And you have a sense of spaciousness through the hips and the knees as well. I'm going to take a few breaths here just to notice how you feel. Now, I have a little space between my feet side by side as well. As you're here breathing, you're going to notice, are there places where you're holding tension, where your body actually is in this position able to relax and use the ground to support it a little bit more? Sometimes there's a whole shift that comes with moving from upright, where we're supporting ourselves in gravity, to lying down where the floor is here for us. So give that a moment to happen. There's also a shift in our breathing because we're not using so many of the muscles of the torso to hold us up here. So we're letting the breathing shift. We're really feeling the feet grounded on the floor. And we're just taking a moment here to notice sensation. So you might notice, okay, there's things that are hurting right now, or there's things that feel really tight. There's some tension that doesn't want to relax yet. Or there's some asymmetry in the body, which is completely normal, by the way. And it's sometimes one of those things that changes when we practice. So we notice it simply so we get that baseline, right? Of where am I now? And then we're going to start with butterfly. So for butterfly, the feet stay where they are. They're not going to slide on the mat side to side, but we will rock onto the outer edges of the feet if you're moving far enough at the hips. all of this movement is going to be driven by the hips. So we're going to think about the thigh bone moving in the hip socket. The pelvis up to the head should be really quiet. Knees are going to come away from one another out to the sides, just as far as they come. Now, if we don't slide the feet, it's going to limit your range of motion, and that's okay. We're not looking for range of motion here. And then we're going to come back up. And you're going to do a few of these. You're going to see if you can coordinate the two sides so they're moving at about the same rate, like the wings of a butterfly. You're looking to see if you can foster a sense of smoothness. And notice if you're going really fast, because sometimes that's how we do a movement that's hard. So we can get to the end where the body feels really safe because the muscle's tight and it holds on to the leg and there's nothing we need to control. So here we're working on building coordination. We want to be moving in a range where we have that control. So you may not go as far as you possibly can go here right now. So you're just noticing what you feel. And then we're going to keep the right leg still, and we're going to move the left leg. Now what we're looking for here is what else happens in the body. So you might notice, oh, well, the whole body is tipping towards the left. That's a little different than the right leg is still, the pelvis is quiet, the low back is quiet, the abdominals are quiet, and the left leg moves in the hip as far as it moves. So again, this is not about range of motion. And sometimes when this is hard and people are getting a lot of extra things happening, they're bracing with the shoulders and arms, they're bracing with the jaw, they're holding their breath, the other leg is pushing into the floor or tipping out to the side. All of these kinds of things are signs that you're not quite finding that level of coordination yet in your body. It's easier to build it if you move in a range where you have some control. And so sometimes I'll ask people to just start with the smallest movement they can. And that's a mental shift, right? So you might have thoughts about that. So finding a smaller movement, if you really feel like you have good control of that smaller movement, you might grow it. Well, we're trying to stay relaxed and easy here. This isn't about locking everything down so we can be competitive and go as far as we can go. It's about finding a sense of steadiness and ease. And then you might leave the left leg still and move the right leg. And this might be a completely different experience. Maybe this leg is much easier to coordinate. Maybe it's much harder. Maybe you get the pelvis or the other leg moving almost right away. Again, feel free to start with the smallest movement you can do. Teaching the whole system, right? The whole body mind to stay quiet and calm and nonchalant and easy as you do this movement in the hip. And you're just noticing what you notice. You're learning what you learn here from this. And then when you're ready, you're coming back to stand on the soles of both feet. Taking a moment to feel what you feel. So that's butterfly, and maybe we're finding with butterfly that there's a lot of work to be done in terms of separating the leg movement and the pelvic movement, finding just some natural, relaxed, easy stability through the core in order to allow the leg to move. Now another position we can do this in is we can lift the right leg up and bring the right ankle onto the front of the left leg. Now this doesn't work for everyone, and so there's some variations to this if this doesn't work for you. There's other things you can do. But if you can get into this position fairly easily, one thing you're going to notice is as you're coming into that position, can the pelvis stay still? Because if the pelvis is moving as you're externally rotating this leg, then you're doing something quite different, right? You're not moving at the hip, you're doing something quite different. So you're going to see if you can keep the pelvis quiet as you bring this leg in. And then you're going to see if you can think about this right leg as a gate with two hinges. One hinge is the ankle, the other hinge is the right hip itself. And you're going to open that gate towards you, towards the midline of your body, and close it. And as you're doing that movement, it's coming from the hip. And just like when we're moving a gate, we really want the fence itself to be really still. So too, when we're moving this leg, we want quiet through the left leg, quiet through the pelvis, not by bracing. So again, this can be quite hard for some people. This movement that we have available might be really small. It might be difficult to stabilize without locking everything down with a whole lot of tension. And it's still a really helpful movement skill. It's going to help us in the long run. So you're going to play with this. When you're ready to come out, you're going to do so with as little extra movement as possible, thinking about the right leg moving in the hip. Taking a moment to notice what you feel. And sometimes it's when that right leg comes down that we notice a big shift and that we didn't notice happening, but it lets us know that, oh, something a little extra happened there, right? And then we're going to do the left side. So same thing, as quietly as you can with as little extra movement as possible, bringing the left leg in, if that's available to you. And then the left leg becomes a gate. Again, the hinges are the ankle and the hip. And you're going to move that in towards you and away from you, opening and closing the gate. And this side might be quite different. So maybe you have more or less movement on this side. So we have the leg in a different position than we did when we did butterfly. But we're still looking for a similar kind of coordination. We're looking for smooth movement. And we're seeing, can I isolate the movement of the leg without getting a lot of other stuff in the rest of the body helping out or going along for the ride unintentionally? It's not that we have to isolate movements all the time. It's that the ability to isolate movements really allows us to coordinate and allows our bodies to organize themselves to where they're not doing a whole lot of extra work or having a lot of extra movement when it's not necessary. And that really can help our bodies feel better, especially when we're changing a pattern that's been there for a long time. So when you're ready to come out here, you're going to use as little extra movement as possible, really moving from the left hip as you bring the foot down. You're going to take a moment here to notice how you feel. And then we're going to take this movement and we're going to see how we feel in standing. So take your time. We're coming from lying down to standing. Give your body a moment to adjust. Feel free to come up to standing in any way that works for you. So if you're a person who likes to move through downward facing dog, you have that in your practice, go for it. If you are a person who is just figuring out how to get up off the floor, then get up off the floor however you can do it. It's all good. As we come to stand, we're going to take a moment to get to know standing again, right? Because here we're using the muscles of the body to hold us upright. We're feeling the sensations in the bottoms of the feet. Maybe getting our weight centered side to side, front to back on the feet. And then for our purposes today, we're going to take the feet a little bit wider. Now, when we take the feet wider, what we don't want is to start to feel like we're really rocking inward onto the inner feet. So that can happen if we take the feet too wide. If we take the feet too wide, it also can feel like you're leaning way forward. So we want to still feel pretty easy and upright when we take the feet wider. It's just the feet are a little wider, that's all. Thigh bones moved out a little bit in the sockets. And then this is the piece where we really want to be clear that we're moving from the hips. So often what you'll hear in a yoga class is you'll be instructed to turn your feet out. And the thing about that is we could turn the foot out mostly at the ankle and have barely any movement at the thigh. Or we can ask the hip to rotate out. This outer thigh seam is going to wrap around the back and the foot's going to kind of follow. And when we do that, the front of the thigh bone, the knee, the front of the shin, the toes, that's all going to move together as one unit. So it's going to be lined up. That's more what we're looking for. So we're going to go out here about 45 degrees, not all the way to the side, but turning out and really being conscious of that movement coming from the hip. So there is something happening up here, right? Very similar to those movements that we did when we were lying down. Obviously, the leg itself is in a different position, but we're asking something very similar of the hips. And then as you bend your knees here towards a goddess legs, we want the knees to be traveling towards the toes. So wherever the leg ended up, whatever rotation it ended up in, we're keeping that as we bend here. So now we're looking for coordination through the hips. Knees are moving towards the toes. Both sides are coming down at the same rate if you can. So everything from your pelvis up to the crown of your head is like it's on an elevator. It's just lowering straight down. And you get to decide how far down you come. Once you're here, however far you want to be, you're going to hold. You're going to stay connected to the floor through the big toe and the base of the big toe. Then you're going to bring your hands onto your outer thighs and you're going to think about pressing those very upper thighs back. So we're getting a little work now in the hips. We're working into that external rotation in this position. If you want to bring your arms up, you can bring your arms up. If it helps to have your arms back so you can feel what your legs are doing, feel free to do that. And you're going to keep breathing here. So ideally, we're doing a little more work here, but we're not struggling. So you're in a place where you're not in pain. You're still breathing. You're working, but you're not strained, right? When you're ready to come out, you're going to think about pressing down into the feet, moving through the joints of the legs to come up. And then we're going to move at the hips again to bring the toes forward and step the legs back into what is a more typical stance for you. Taking a moment to notice how you feel. So sometimes we find that doing a little prep work like we did with butterfly and ankle to knee is really helpful when we then come up and try to do these standing poses that require us to do a movement like this in the hip. So we can start to isolate this movement without the pelvis moving, without the other leg doing things, without moving at the ankle, and start to really feel into what's happening in the hip. So I hope this is some useful food for thought. As I mentioned, there's a lot of externally rotated poses at the hips in yoga. We do this movement a lot. And so this might be useful prep work if you have a postural yoga practice, as well as just useful for lower body health, joint health in general. If you have any questions or you want to share your experiences, I'd love it if you did that in the comments. Take really good care. And thanks for practicing with me. May we all be balanced and well.